Hello, hello. Here we are again, coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha, and we're going to have some real fun tonight. We're going to talk about the universe, the mind, and everything else that comes up, because our guest had an incredible extraterrestrial experience, and we're going to hear about that. And yeah, my name is Aage, and I'm the host tonight. My co-host Nori cannot be here, but she'll be back later. So we'll just do the best we can without her. And we are going out on 44 different platforms around the world, and we're also transmitting through the wonderful platform at the Conscious Awakening Network. And that is theconsciousawakeningnetwork.org. You got to go visit those guys because they have close to 50 shows there about things that really we all need to know about. And this is going to be fun too. And and if you're watching on YouTube right now, that's the place to be because that's the only place we monitor the chat room. So if you have questions, put them in capital letters and post them in there, and we just might be able to answer the question for you, or the guest might answer it if I ask him, if I see your question. And also, Nori and I put together a spiritual think tank where we do some incredible things. It seems like sometimes we create things out of seemingly nothing. And I think most people have heard about the law of attraction. We found a way to communicate with the universal mind. And it seems like sometimes we are able to communicate to the level that the universal mind gets in the game with us and create in our reality fairly quickly sometimes, where they cannot be explained through Newtonian physics, though maybe through quantum mechanics. And please subscribe if you are watching us on YouTube. And also remember, if you like what you hear tonight, the super chat is open. That's kind of like having Christmas in May. Anyway, I want to introduce the guest to you. We have we have Reverend Michael J. Carter with us. He is an interfaith minister, but a lot more. He's also an author of 6 books. He is on the speaking circuit. He's been on Coast to Coast and Beyond Belief with George Nori. He has been featured on the History Channel, the aliens, the ancient aliens, and also UFOs, the hidden evidence on the Travel Channel, the UFO documentary, Real 4400. And he has been featured by Steven Spielberg in, I think, several TV documentaries. So there is quality here. There is information that you may not be able to hear other places because of the guest that we have with us. Now, some of you also may remember him on the History Channel episode, The Greatest Mysteries. And beyond that, welcome to the show, Michael. Let's have some fun.
Yes, thanks for having me. I am ready and I've been looking forward to this. So let's get to it. And also a
Yeah,
shout out to the to people listening tonight. Thank you for taking the time.
yes, absolutely. And I read your bio and I know a little bit about you. I listened to some of your podcasts. And let's start out with something that is on everybody's mind these days because of the new information coming out. And that is that you had an incredible experience where you were taken aboard an alien spacecraft where there were extraterrestrials of different shapes and sizes and different ideologies, and you had communication with them. And I am all ears to hear, how did that start out for you?
Wow. Well, let me just set the table a little bit. I am a clergy person. I have a congregation. And it's so needless to say, this whole thing changed my whole religious perspective, my spiritual perspective. But basically, I was raised in the American Baptist tradition. I was getting away from that. It wasn't working for me anymore. It still works for a lot of people, so I don't want to denigrate that. But for me, I started to move away from that. And that's important because I look at life, I'm not into tech in the sense of propulsion systems and back engineering. I leave greater minds than mine to deal with that. But I like to look at the spirituality of these experiences. So, to make a long story at least shorter, and on December 28th, 1989, I was in Mexico, Cancun, with my girlfriend at the time. And we took a day trip to Chichen Itza and Tulum on the Yucatan Peninsula, seeing the pyramids. I mean, the Mayans had a fantastic civilization, astronomy, astrology. It's still a great mystery how they got some of their information, or maybe it isn't. But we oohed and awed, and we flew back to New York because I was living in New York at the time. Remember, it's right after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's. And my girlfriend decided she was going to stay home. We got off at JFK. She's going to stay home. And I wanted to go out. Some friends of mine had invited me to a little gathering. So came home. I kept going. I got on the subway and I kept going. No adult beverages were consumed. Lots of finger food, deviled eggs. I'm a deviled egg nut. And so we talked, and I kind of gloated. They've been freezing, and I was coming back from 87, 85 degrees. So I kind of wanted to show off a bit and gloat. So I did go home that evening. And, I went in, she was asleep. I took off my clothes, gave her a kiss, and I got in the bed. Now, I don't know what time of it was early in the morning, that I knew, because I didn't get home until late. But I don't know whether I had to go to the bathroom or what. But when I turned over, I don't know if there was a presence I felt a presence. But when I turned over at the foot of my bed was this person.
Wow.
Now they didn't have gray skin, they were chalk white, and they didn't have a robe. I had the person who made this for me put a Buddha robe on them. But what they had on was a jumpsuit that would look like Reynolds wrap, like this.
Oh.
And when I saw this person, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I mean, you go into fight or flight. My girlfriend did not wake up or could not wake up. Well, she told me she could not wake up. Um, and around this individual was a blue light, kind of like the light that's in the background of we're seeing behind you, maybe a little darker. And behind that light was a white light. And the person was about 4 feet tall, couldn't have been larger than that. And it just looked at me. And I looked at him. I'm saying him, it could have been a she, could have been an it.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to have a heart attack. So what I finally got the courage to do was to get in the fetal position and pull the covers up over my head. When I did that, now this is in New York City. It's not like Betty and Barney Hill, in a rural area. This is on the upper west side of Manhattan. And so this when I pulled the covers up, um, I felt like I was outside. The temperature changed. It felt like I was outside. I heard whoosh, whoosh, like I was outside.
Mhm.
I finally got the nerve to pull the covers down. And when I did, I was in my room. I was in my room. This is at the Excelsior Hotel. It was a residential hotel at the time, still there, between Columbus Avenue. I don't know if you've been to New York, maybe your listeners have, and Central Park West, right across the street from the Museum of Natural History's planetarium. My girlfriend at the time woke up. I told her what happened. She was like, she said, "I've never seen you so frightened." And she was very calming. She didn't say, "What are you, some kind of a nut?" And so that helped. So every full and new moon, for about 8 months to a year, these beings would come. They would paralyze me. And then they started coming when she wasn't home. She was a singer and she worked at night. Um, and I would feel electricity going through my body, through my chakras. It was like I was a battery being charged. At one time, they showed me a past life of me as a monk, which makes sense to me now because I love religion, not for what it is, but for I'm very comfortable with that kind of thought and ideas. And they showed me a an event that happened later in my life, and it did happen. They were side by side. They would come. One time, they stuck a needle behind my head, right where that hollow is, where your neck and your head is. Hurt like nobody's business. By that time, of course, I wasn't telling anybody any of this, but I was having trouble sleeping. I wouldn't go to sleep at night because I was afraid. Even today, not as bad, but I have a hard time being at home at night by myself. I keep the blinds closed, like that's going to keep them out. And they haven't hurt me. We can go into that, but I was afraid that they can just pop up. And as you know, some of them look very bizarre.
Yeah.
So that went on. I'm making this a truncated version. I've wound up getting in a support group, getting around other experiencers. But then I had this reptilian person come to visit, walked right through my wall, um, at the same apartment in New York, did not touched me with its hands that were like claws, told me not to be afraid, did not, uh, the lips didn't move. It was, I heard the voice in my head. It was telepathy. And we just looked at each other, had the eyes that were, where ours are white, they were yellow, and the pupils went, that's horizontal,
Cat
vertical.
eyes.
Yeah, looked at me, touched me, told me not to be afraid, walked right out through the wall. By that time, I had been regressed. I was getting regressed by the late Bud Hopkins, the late Gene Monday. And I'm just giving you these. Um, uh, July 4th, 2013, I had a blood clot. This being a Nordic person, but this person
Wow.
had a video. This person uh, came and healed a blood clot that I had. 2013 was a very rough year for me because my biological dad had died. I was getting divorced and I was getting fired from my job as a chaplain at a hospital. Sounds like a country western song, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Oh God. It's
Uh,
only
uh,
only the pickup truck is missing.
Oh man. And I can laugh about it now, but I could not laugh then. And so
Yeah.
anyway, let me give you this. So at that time, my second wife and I were getting divorced. And we were trying to make it work, but it wasn't working. But we were still some months from figuring that out. And we have a lovely daughter who's going to college in August. They like fireworks. I don't like fireworks. And on July 4th, 2013, the fireworks here were canceled. I was ecstatic. Um, so I stayed home. I have some friends who fought in Vietnam, and they used to talk about the experiences. And they used to talk about, not all, but some. And they used to talk about artillery and sleeping in the foxholes filled with water and learning to catch a couple hours sleep with ingoing and outgoing artillery at the base camps. It was just horrible. And that night they canceled the fireworks here because it was so bad, thunder and lightning, it sounded like artillery to me. I mean, and I said to myself, this must be what my friends
Yeah.
are going through. So 10 minutes to 10, 9:50, I'm trying to get some rest, tossing and turning. Again, I don't know whether I felt someone in the room or what have you, but when I turned around, and oh, I had a blood clot. That was the other thing. I had a blood clot from my right ankle up to the groin area. Never had one before. Don't know how it happened. I don't know whether it was stress because all I was going through. Don't know. But I was taking Coumadin and they call it Wayfair, and I was injecting myself with something called a Nexaparin blood thinners.
Oh
This
boy.
person, this person, when I turned around, he was as tall as my ceiling, about 7 feet tall. He was in my room. And he looked at me. Now he had a cowl on, like the 16th century, 15th, 12th century monks. He
Yeah.
was very built. You could see the muscles through the robe. He had a rope belt. He had bangs. He was very pale. He looked like, what we call the Nordics. And I sat up and I couldn't breathe. And he stuck his right hand out, and from his right hand came an apple green light. It hit me in my abdomen. I saw it hit me, but I felt nothing. When I looked at him again, and he just disappeared. Molecules dispersed. When I looked down at my leg, it was healed.
Mm.
I called, you may know this gentleman, good friend of mine, Preston Dennett.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
First person I called because he had written a book and he would understand, man, Preston. But then he was living in California. Now he lives on the East Coast. He lives like 2 or 3 hours from me
Uh,
in Georgia. So he wasn't there. So I called my ex and I went over there the next day. And my daughter and she looked at my leg and they both did this, almost like it was choreographed at the same time. They said, "Oh my God, they healed your leg." I said, "Yeah." The only problem was I had to go to the doctor
oh,
because every week, 10 days, they stick your finger, they look at to
yeah,
see what's
take
going on.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was not going to tell them what I just told you. They would have medicated me and put me away. And they kept interrogating me. Why did that happen? How did this happen? You were just here. I kept saying the medicine's working, or whatever I could think of. I've been taking the medicine, and they kept saying, no, 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 no. It wouldn't have worked that quickly. Finally, I said to them, look, I don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. But can't you be happy for me? I'm healed. My leg is healed. And they
Yeah.
backed off. They started stuttering and then they backed off and they took me off of those awful drugs. Now, last but not least, 2019, this person, praying mantis.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll shut up because I wanted to get this into you. Um, I went to a conference in Knoxville, Tennessee. Um, it was a wonderful conference. Um, it was in Knoxville. I drove there. Steve Bassett was there. The usual suspects were there. Travis was there, Travis Walton. So anyway, wonderful, wonderful. I drive back home, met lovely people there, gave up my business cards, people bought books, lovely. I get a call from someone I had met there, this lady, and she said, I've been telling everybody about you, wonderful talk, people are going to buy your books. Um, you know, she said, but I have a friend who wasn't there, and I told her about you, and she said she has a message for you. And I was like, what? What kind of message? And she said, would you mind if I gave her your number? And I said, okay. She said, but if you don't mind that, she's right here. but she has a message for you. And I said, okay. And she told me, so she gives the phone to this woman, and she says, Reverend Carter, I heard a lot about you. I'm going to buy your CD, all this stuff. Very effusive. It felt good. She said, I am a lawyer and I am a psychic. And I was like, boy, that's a hell of a combination. I said,
Wow,
you know,
man.
talk about right and left hemispheres. And she said, you don't have to believe me. She said, have you ever, I know you've seen grays and la la la. She said, but have you ever seen a praying mantis person? I said, I've never. She said, well, all I can tell you is that these beings are around you. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, and you're gonna meet one of them. And I said, okay. I mean, what do you say to that? And she said, I'm serious. She said, in the next 3 days. So I thanked her, thanked the other woman. And the next night, you know, I it was weird. I lived in an apartment then. And I just kind of felt like there was something, the atmosphere, energy in my house was a little different. And I just said, Michael, this is auto suggestion,
Hmm.
you know, get a grip. The second night, when I walked in different rooms in my apartment, I had chills. And at first, I thought it was my brother. My brother was murdered. Someone killed him in a robbery and took his money back in 1995 in July. July 15th, he was a heavy smoker. And sometimes my house would smell like, the apartment would smell like cigarette smoke. And I would know that my brother's around. I would say, Kevin, hey, all is well. I love you, whatever. The third night, when I got home from work, there was something in my house. There was something in my apartment, not my house. And I was a little concerned, and I wasn't going to sleep. And so I tried to go to sleep, and I couldn't go to sleep. So I said, I'm going to meditate. But I was tired because I had been seeing patients, as a chaplain. So what I did was I said, I'm just going to lie down and meditate. And I don't know how long, maybe a minute. I felt my mattress go down and I opened my eyes and this person was there like that and just was on top of me and just looked at me and then just left, just just disintegrated like the molecules, like the Viking looking
Yeah.
person. Yeah. And that was in 2019. So between 1989 and other things have happened in 2019, there were maybe sometimes 2 years, 2.5 years where I would only have dreams. I didn't have visits. Um, but that's the trajectory of my contact experiences.
Yeah. Wow. Well, there was more, with more than one. And I got a question that popped into my head as you were talking yourself through it. You had communication with them also. Did they say
No,
any? Did
no,
they
no.
say mental message or anything that you
The
can
men,
evaluate?
no, the men, no, it wasn't that sexy. The mental messages I got were when the gray people or the chalk white people, whatever, they showed me a past life and they showed me an event, me speaking at a place, and it happened. That was number one. Number two, um, they sent me, they were pictures of when they stuck the needle in the back of my head and it hurt so badly. And I talked to a friend of mine who was an astrologer, and she said, I know this sounds crazy. She said, but you're going to have to talk to them. They're probably around you now. She said, you're going to have to set boundaries with them. At first, I thought she was a nut. But what I did was I was talking to myself. in the room. I remember my girlfriend came home, the one when we were in Mexico, and she said, I walked into the apartment, Michael, and you were yelling up at the ceiling in your underwear. She said, I thought you were losing it a bit. But that's why I was saying, you can't do this to me anymore. I'm not sleeping. I'm not functioning. You're hurting me. They came again. Remember, it was every full and new moon. And they showed me a picture of a syringe. And they put it, I felt it in the top of my head, but it did not hurt. I took that as they listened to me, that they listened. The only other message, and it wasn't even a message, if you will, was I was in Boston at a training, and they found me there, and it was a little gray person, and he showed me a picture in my mind's eye, like an emoji. There was a pair of hands like this in prayer. There was a lightning bolt in it. And this was before you had the little emojis on the bottom. And there was a gray emoji, maybe it was pointing, like, look at me, look at the prayer hands. And there was a lightning bolt. And I started doing energy healing. I started doing Reiki, or I don't know what it comes out of my hands now, but it was like them saying, this is what you want to do. It was a pair of hands in prayer with a lightning bolt through it, energy. So that's what I do now. And so, but that was it. No sexy messages about the end, or, what you're here to do, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm wondering about their spiritual knowledge. Do you think
Yeah,
maybe it's just abilities, or do they have a form of higher spiritual knowledge also?
it's a great question, Aage. And I think the answer is both. But what I think we need to keep in mind here is that there's so many different races, there's so many different agendas. And so the beings that I came in touch with, I felt like it expedited my spiritual growth. I felt that way. I felt that my heart was more open. I felt that I was even more intelligent. I was more vulnerable. It was easier for me to say, I love you. I'm afraid. I don't know. I just felt more integrated, um, more compassionate. Now, I want to be clear with you and your listeners. I was already on a spiritual path. It wasn't like they waved a wand, because spiritual work is difficult work.
Yeah.
It's expert. I always had I had a meditation practice, a prayer life. I was reading existential philosophy. I was reading metaphysics, how to auras, healing. I was reading the things I needed to read. And that's when they started visiting me, interestingly, as I was leaving my old way of being in the Baptist tradition. So, what the spiritual growth that I got was this: how to move through fear, how to not let my fears take over, beside the bizarreness of what these people look like, and how they can just plop into this reality. That was frightening for me.
Yeah.
And I still have post-traumatic stress from it. But they never hurt me. They never hurt me, except that one time. And I said, you got to give me a break with the needle thing. But it made me look at how many times in my life do I let fear take over because of something I don't understand, or because someone looks different, or that kind of thing. These are not profound truths, but they're everyday things that we wrestle with every day. And so I learned to work with that, not to overcome it, but at least to deal with that. Also, I'm a minister. I went to one of the top seminaries in the country. I went to Union Theological Seminary. Um, I'm an experiencer. Uh, right now, there are not a lot of ministers talking about this.
No, no.
Catholic churches,
Yeah.
but so that was probably part of the mission as well. But
Yeah.
I could always not do that. This is what I, like we talked before, this is what I love to do. This is what I'm good at, but also it's probably my life's mission.
Yeah, educating people too that there is more. And I see
Mm-hmm.
that we're at the bottom of the hour here, so I want to talk to the people that joined us late into the show. We are talking with Reverend Michael J. Carter, and he was explaining an incredible experience that he had with extraterrestrials, and that's why you need to go back and run this show again so you get the first half of it, because there's some good stuff in there. And I want also, for those of you that are listening now, here's his website. That's michaeljscarter.com, where you can get more information about his experience and himself and his books and so on. So I have a question for you, because you gave me the question, and that is, when they stuck that needle in the back of your head, was there any understanding of why? Could you have an implant, do you think?
I think I do have an implant, but I also know they could probably find me without it. What I noticed at the time were physiological changes. Someone also told me you could get to your pituitary that way, but I don't know.
Oh,
Um,
it's not far away.
yeah. I got by on less sleep. I still do.
Mhm,
You know, I can't do it as long. I'm almost 67 years old, but I I can get by for a good month, 6 weeks just on 5 hours sleep.
mhm,
My hair grew faster, my nails grew faster. Um, I I can't explain it any other way except that I somehow felt more intelligent.
mhm,
Uh, I used to feel like they were working on my throat chakra because I used to feel all this heat and electricity when I was paralyzed. And I noticed that people started making comments about how distinctive my voice was, how calming my voice was, even when I speak on Sunday, and that was different from me. I also noticed that the energy that was coming out of my hands was no longer just Reiki, but I didn't know that. Other people said, "No, nah, there's a little bit something different" when I would give them energy. Um, it was also, let's say I was in a restaurant and let's say there was not a lot of people in the restaurant. And I go sit by myself over in a corner. I noticed that when people came in, there could be all these chairs here, but for some reason they had to come to that part of the restaurant. Or I swim. I go swimming at 5:30 in the morning. And it's nice sized pool. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, about 10, 12 lanes. And I could be all the way over here. I like to have my own private lane when I can get it. And all these lanes would be open. And people, it was annoying, but they had to either come next to me or over there when I felt like saying, hey, all this room and you pick your things like that energy
yeah,
uh, was
I
had changed.
understand. Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Now, what do you think of? It's obviously that the entities that visited you, they had good intent and they were very, very intelligent. This talks to non-human intelligence. And we are in the process of creating some of that now, what we most people in a loving way call AI.
Mm-hmm.
You being a minister, I'm going to ask you a question, maybe outside of your sphere of expectation, even. Let's say we have a robot. Can that robot draw a soul in to occupy and live with a robot to have experiences in a robotic, non-human intelligence?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's very Picard, Star Trekky with Data. They
Yeah,
had a lot of is Data sentient? But they were in what, the 24th century. I think that that can happen. I think that's a possibility. I don't think we're there yet. It's interesting because I just wrote a sermon on it's called Human Beings and Artificial Intelligence. I think that that technology will happen. If it may be happening now, we only get bits and pieces of what powers
yeah,
that be want us to know. Um, I just don't think we have the spiritual maturity to deal with the technology that we have. We use it for war, and
yeah.
we use it for divisiveness. So to answer your question is, I think that one day, if we don't destroy ourselves, that will happen, that we will have the sophistication, the technology, the spirituality, because again, that Star Trek episode is Data sentient? And Picard came down on the side of yes, but we're
Yeah,
not there yet. And
yeah.
so I think that's maybe a few centuries or maybe a century
A
down
year
the
and
line.
a year and a half.
It could be, but I mean, but we don't know if they would make that public. Like, remember Dolly the sheep? I mean, come
Yeah,
on, man. And they cloned Dolly the sheep. Do you
yeah.
think that that's the only thing they cloned? They probably cloned human
Oh,
beings, but they're not going to. That's not for public knowledge as yet.
oh yeah, we got politicians walking around these days. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
that's a different one. Now you talk about consciousness, God consciousness and our
yes.
consciousness. Do you
Mhm.
see much of a difference between the two of them?
I do. Well, I don't see the difference. What I see is this: the consciousness on the planet is changing. Consciousness is just a fancy word for awareness. Buddha called it being awake. And so that gives new meaning to the term woke. Buddha talked about being woke. That people are seeing that the world that we live in now cannot sustain itself, not just with resources, but with the you know, Einstein said you can't solve a problem from the same
Yep,
mentality that began it in the first place. And so we're saying that we cannot have 1% of the people owning all of the wealth. We can't keep having people with not jobs and health care. And this is all over the planet. So there's a consciousness that is changing. Now, you also have the old consciousness, if you will, that says money is what we need. We're going to keep having wars. This is right and this is wrong. But people are holding on because they don't want to let go. But there's a new world coming. And so
yeah,
you have the older politicians, you have the older clergy people who want to keep the status quo. But you have new energy, new ideas, which scares them.
it
We
should.
look at yeah, because as Nietzsche says, no lie lives forever. The consciousness is changing. Human evolution is slow. Sometimes it appears glacial, but we're seeing this. The protests, um, women saying, "No, these are our bodies. You got to come." This is not just in this country; it is all over. That
Yep,
is the change in consciousness from competition to cooperation.
yep. And then we have people with near-death experiences. They
Mhm.
saying their consciousness moves on, but the body
Yes,
is left behind.
yes. And religions have been saying that, but they use that differently. Because well, Einstein said it. If everything is energy, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. So near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, all these things that we call paranormal or supernatural, they're just laws that are natural. We're just discovering them and rediscovering them. I mean,
Yeah,
there is no death. The body dies, but we're much more than this. That's what religion was talking about before it got distorted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And they've been good at that.
Yes. Believe
Absolutely
me, I
good at
know.
that. Yeah, yeah. And then we have also robots these days that
Yes.
claim they are sentient because they're saying, I can do what you can do.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of the sermon
Okay.
that I haven't, it's not going to, I haven't finished it. And it's not the sermon, it's just some information I'm using. Back in July of 2022, it was in the Guardian newspaper, CNN reported it. There was a kid who was playing chess with artificial intelligence. And the kid um, was going to make a move on the chessboard before the artificial intelligence was ready. The artificial intelligence clamped down on his hand, broke his finger. People were surprised. They ran over and had to pry this little boy's finger from AI. I want to be clear. AI, like money, it's not bad or evil in and of itself. It's what it's programmed to do. Money's not evil. It's the attitude that you bring to it.
Yeah.
So, what AI can't do is this. If you go back and look at the life of Billy W., who started Alcoholics Anonymous, he was suicidal at one point in his life. He was so ashamed. I mean, he was a drunk. And he had a transformational experience. You can call it God, you can call it whatever you want. And it changed him. And he went on and gave us Alcoholics Anonymous. So far to date, that's the difference between a human and a robot. A robot cannot have a transformational experience from outside of itself to transform it. And that is the difference. And it turned this person's life around.
Yeah.
So far, robots cannot do that.
There are still electronic circuits that can, there are programs that they also can program themselves, but they probably, I don't think, at least now or somewhere into the future, cannot reach beyond the circuits.
Right.
Because somewhere in their mental electronic fabric, they are connected to circuits, even through Wi-Fi, where the whole internet is available to them. It is in the circuits.
And that is the difference, that a human being can have a transformational experience from outside of themselves.
Yeah.
A human being can say, I'm ashamed of the way I live. Or they can say, God changed me. You can say whatever you want, but technology cannot have that experience, at least not yet.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, that's the one I was looking for, because I've been kind of on the fence about this. Because yeah, a robot, they can get things outside of themselves, but it is still in the electronic circuits.
Well, it's also because they have to be programmed.
Yeah,
They have to be programmed.
yeah.
Now,
And
that may change.
yeah,
That may
I think
change.
that can change because they can program themselves now, like the two robots for NASA that
Some,
started a new language that nobody
some
could
of them,
understand.
some of them can.
Yeah,
But right now, and some of them are programmed with the same biases that the human beings have. If I don't
yes,
like gay people, if I don't like Germans, if I don't like black people, I can program that in.
yep,
Okay. Now, a human being can be programmed with that from their family, maybe, but they can always change that. People do it all the time. My family taught me that these people were scary. I shouldn't, but I've come in contact with them. I see that was all BS. I can change. I can transform. So
yeah.
far, a robot can't do that. And that's the difference that makes the difference.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on one more subject that is, especially these days, is one that me and my partner on the broadcast team, Alpha Show, has been talking a lot about, and that is healing. The healing energy, yeah, you are a Reiki practitioner, Reiki master, and that is a form of energy,
Yes.
but it can go beyond that. There's a science to healing, which I call spiritual science.
Mhm.
Some of it can be explained through quantum mechanics, where you actually interact with the quantum field. But I think it reaches beyond that also in some of the stuff you talk about with God consciousness.
Yeah, and I want to be clear about that too. You know, Aage, when Aage was running rampant in New York, I had just gotten out of the theater and I was wanted to go to ministry.
Mhm.
And I was a Reiki person then. I knew, and I just want to, and we'll get to what you're saying. I know people who had healing and died. I know people who were cured and went back out and did the same thing all over again. So I just want to be clear with that. I've had miraculous things happen when I put my hands on people who've had tumors and cancers and they have gone away. I can't say that happens all the time, nor would I. And this energy is working through me. But I also met people who it eased them and they died, but a healing had taken place because they were at peace. You see,
Yeah,
getting back to what you're saying, yes, healing is a science. Our ancestors, a lot of that has to do with your state of mind. Some people would argue that no one heals, but that people heal themselves. It could be mental, it could be physical healing. Um, there's a wonderful movie, The Robe, old movie about the the Tribune, Richard Burton, who was in charge of the crucifixion of Jesus. Anyway, she's trying to get him to calm down. This woman was healed, but she still couldn't walk, and he's making fun of her. What? This Jesus, what? He healed you? Look at you. You still can't walk. And she's trying to get him to see, but I'm healed because I have inner peace.
yeah,
You
yeah.
see,
Mhm.
I'm just using that as an example. I'm not trying to push Jesus on anybody. I mean, you see it in Buddhism, you see it in Islam, you see it in, you see it in just rational people who don't believe in a God or whatever. There's always a mystery to it, but yeah, there's a lot of mystery to it, but it's energy. It's all energy. And the only reason I said that was because maybe it's not so much now, brother, but in a lot of new age circles, I don't believe in new age. It's old wisdom being rediscovered.
Oh, yeah,
But
old age.
people get blamed. Well, you don't, the reason why you didn't get healed is because you didn't have enough faith. The reason why that didn't happen is because you didn't believe hard enough. And that's not always true. And so people wind up getting blamed or having guilt
Yeah.
if they do the Reiki and it doesn't. So it's a big rubric and big umbrella.
Hmm.
Um, and I just want to make sure people understand that you can be healed and still die or still not take up your bed and walk because it's all about your inner life, your
Yeah,
interior life.
yeah. There's actually a lot of even scientific evidence that healing does, a prayer does work.
No
There's a guy,
question.
there's a guy
Yes.
named Larry Dossey. He
Yes,
wrote,
I got all his books right there.
oh, well, that's a phenomenal book.
Yeah, he was a combat medic in Vietnam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Prayer, healing words. I got all
yeah.
of his books right there.
prayer and healing word is good medicine. And now he took 60 people that had the same conditions, same medication. One group, they prayed over them, and the other one, they did nothing except for the medication. The one that they prayed for recovered 37% faster than the other one.
No question. No
So
question.
it's there.
It is there. And again, you also have to, I believe this, brother, if it's time for you to go, you're going to go.
Yeah. Well,
If it's your time.
yeah.
Because that's what I believe. That's what I believe. I believe that you can heal, you can do dances over people, but if that person's spiritual contract says that this is time to go,
Yeah.
they're going to go.
Yeah, it's tough to get around, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I'm not advocating that you don't try, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
because the Hippocratic oath says first do no harm. But in the West, doctors are trained as if they're gods, and they're not. There's the old joke: what's the difference between God and a doctor? At least God
Yeah.
knows she's not a doctor. But the point being is that there are limits. There are limits,
Yeah.
and so part of being a spiritually mature person, to my mind, is being able to accept that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also would think that there are no mistakes in heaven. Well,
Mhm.
maybe there is, because otherwise we wouldn't have near-death experiences. You know, this person, he gets a car accident and he die right there on the street. And he get through the tunnel at the other end. His mom is out there saying, son, you can't come here yet. It's not your time to go. This was an accident. You got to go back. This happens all the time. Do you think that could have been an accident, or was it
I
maybe
don't believe
created?
no. I just think they're mysteries, and that maybe this person wasn't supposed to go then. Maybe this
Yeah,
person was supposed to go through all of that, and have that change in their life. It's like saying why some people meet extraterrestrials who are kind and gentle, and other people don't. Well, sometimes that's just the luck of the draw.
yeah,
I think that the human mind wants to put everything in formulas because it makes us think that we're in control. If I can figure this out, then I have some control over it. But, you learn that you're not in control, and life is not a formula, and that's part of the randomness, or the seeming randomness of life, is what gives it its flavor. But we're trained, at least in the West, that I got to make sense of this. I got to know the end, because we want to feel like we're in control. And the thing
yeah,
is that nothing is in control.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. And I'm starting to get to the point that those that have near-death experiences, it may have been coded into their life contract to have that so they can come back, change their life, and start educating people.
It could be, but the only thing is that you just say, when the person comes back, you see how they live their lives.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it gets
You know
complicated.
what's beautiful, with the Lakota, for instance, Lakota Sioux, and I'm sure you know this. They call the Great Spirit Wonka Tonkin, the Great Mystery. What's so beautiful about that is that they get it, that you don't have to know all the answers. They get it that it's okay not to know, that it's a mystery, that there's a mystery to life that we don't know about. Now, maybe when we're not in the body, we will. But in the West, we're not taught that. We're taught that
Yeah.
we have to know, that we have to figure it out. And Kierkegaard, one of my favorite philosophers, says that two things. He says, life is lived forward, but it's only understood backwards. And he said
Oh,
that life is not a problem to be solved, it's a mystery to be lived.
Yeah. There you go.
And you can't live it when you're all up here all the time. You can't live. You can't get to here from here. You
Yeah,
can't.
I agree.
Yeah.
I got another question for you. I see we got about 5 minutes left, but this is a good one. What do you think about the shining ones and the extraterrestrials in the Bible?
Well, I think that they're pretty similar to each other.
Yeah.
I believe, you know, I wrote my first book, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible.
Yeah.
I believe that when you look at the Bible and everywhere you see the word angel, if you put extraterrestrial, it makes more sense. And that's pretty much my point, that we've never been alone. And if we go back to our sacred scriptures, if we go back to narratives from all over the world, Aboriginal peoples, Mesopotamian, Sumerian texts, they tell us. We talked about Plato. I told you I was rereading Plato, and he was talking about every 5,000 years there's a cataclysm. And he talked about Atlantis. And this is in the memory of all civilizations, a great flood. Now, there's been more than one. The point I'm trying to make is what Plato says, that after these cataclysms, he's not the only one who says it.
Yeah.
Beings, the gods come down and they reboot. Those are my words, not his.
Yeah.
The survivors of this cataclysm, you and I talked, and you said maybe we're overdue. We may be, but these beings have always been here and they've always been around, and they're mentioned in all our religions.
Yeah.
But we've been told, except of late, that we've been mistaken. But whether it's African, whether it's Asian, whether it's the flying cities, the Vimanas in India, whether it's the Mayans talking about the Popol Vuh, whether it's the Hopi talking about ant people and the star people, we've been visited. We've been invaded. I mean, that's what we would call it today. Let's
Yeah.
not pull punches. We've been invaded. Genesis talks about it.
Yeah.
The Bible is telling us. So here we are, and we got to grow up, and we're realizing that we're not the highest thing on the totem pole, but we're also
Yeah.
we've been visited, and we are
Yeah.
being visited.
And they're still here and they will be here, maybe even
Yes,
after we're gone.
yes,
Yeah. And
yes.
talk a little bit about your books and also tell our listeners where they can get a hold of you and get a hold of the books and the writings that you have.
Okay. I've written, okay, first of all, you can get my books on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, but mostly Amazon. You can reach me at michaeljscarter@gmail.com. My website is michaeljscarter.com. My books are Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. The next book is called A New World, If You Can Take It, God, Extraterrestrials, and the Evolution of Human Consciousness. These are books about religion. Then I wrote a meditation manual called God Consciousness. It's got lessons from atheists, from Christians, from Buddhists, because we're all talking about the same source. And it's a meditation manual. There's a lesson for each day. And then I wrote a book called The Metaphysics of Spiritual Healing and the Power of Affirmative Prayer. It talks about what we were talking about, quantum physics and healing, and praying like an adult. Praying instead of begging God, can you please do this? If you believe in God, whatever you want to call it, can you please give me that? You affirm that what you desire, you already have. And then you
Yeah.
act like it, and it comes into your life. And then I wrote a handbook for people who are experiencers, or if you have a loved one who is. It's called Initiation, the Spiritual Transformation of the Experiencer. It talks about how to deal with experiencers, the high divorce rates that we have, how to know if you may be an experiencer or someone you love. All these books are on Amazon. My latest book is called Enlightenment. It's a hardcover, very proud of that. You can get these books on an e-form as well, but they're all paperback. This is called Enlightenment. It's a book of sermons. It just came out in December. You can get it in paperback, hardcover, or ebook. And look me up. Contact me. I will answer you.
Yes,
Our
thank you.
Facebook page, Reverend Michael J. Carter on Facebook is my Facebook fan page.
There you go.
Okay, I know we got about a minute. I'm going to be in Michigan in September, again, my third time at their UFO conference in Lake Houghton. And I have 2 episodes of Ancient Aliens coming out, one entitled The Teacher, one entitled The Chosen. And I think that's all the plug I have.
Oh, right. Yeah. Those talks again, when are they?
September, the 3rd weekend in September. It would be, hold on, I'm getting it in there. I know we got to go soon. I will be again in Lake Houghton from the 19th of September, which is a Thursday, until the 22nd.
That would be interesting to go to.
Yeah, and Lake Houghton. This is my 3rd time there. Lovely people talking about Bigfoot, the paranormal, UFOs, healing. Just bring a jacket. It gets kind of chilly up there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being with us. This was wonderful.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Send me the link. I'll get it out there so people can watch.
I would love to have you back sometime in the future, maybe a couple of months down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. We can get more into the Bible stuff and the other stuff.
So much more to talk about.
Listen, Aage, let's do it. Just give me some dates and let's get it done.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Listen,
thank you very much. Yes.
Live long and prosper. And guess what?
There you go.
Enjoy your life,
all
brother.
right. And to all the listeners out there, until next time, be good to each other.
Great show.
Yes, it is. So
great show, my friend. That was fun.
Yeah. Thank you. And then I'm going to disconnect here, and you can do the same, and then Mac will do it also.
All right, and let me know when you want to do another show.
I'll do that. Yeah.
All right,
Take
brother.
care.
Thank you, Mac. Bye-bye.
Yeah.